Thank you. Well, hello again, everybody, and hello, Margo, and thanks for joining us with your cup of tea. We thought it might be good to talk about some of the risks of being outdoors and how to be safe, and hear a few tips from Margo, as well as thinking about some of the ways we know that dementia can affect people's balance or people's orientation, and thinking about ways to work safely with those challenges that we face. So of course, every type of dementia is different, and everybody's experience of dementia is different. There are some common challenges around balance. People can feel quite unsettled or be a little bit physically unbalanced, as well as orientating yourself to your surrounds. Sometimes places that were once very familiar can become unfamiliar or a bit strange for people. Of course, also people can feel a little bit more anxious in general or a little bit unmotivated. So there's some of the challenges that I think would be good to talk about. How to be outdoors and keep people safe, being aware of those challenges, but not stopping people from doing things because of those disruptions people face. So one of the things you mentioned earlier, right, was that a simple little tip is to wear sensible shoes.
Yeah.
What type of shoes?
Quite often sneakers, because they're quite easy, usually quite easy to put on, and the soles are more beneficial if the surface is a bit gravelly or not quite smooth.
Yeah, great. And I know there are some places where you can go to get your runners fitted really well as well, and get really stable runners for to wear. It might be a good idea.
Most shoe shops are pretty helpful. What I did was I'd have his size, and then I would go in and just purchase the same size, and quite often the same shoe.
Yeah, over and over.
Yeah, over and over. And then it didn't matter
if he was with you or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good tip. Yeah.
Another thing is I would talk to Tex as we were going, and quite often hold his hand. So that could be a bit orientating.
Yeah.
Sunscreen's important, hats, depending on the time of day, but sometimes you need to have hats that've got ties on it because the wind can blow them off. So
Yep. What about choosing places where there is somewhere to sit? Was that an important thing?
When we were going along the river initially, it was important. But there were seats along the river, like picnic seats for some of it.
Yeah.
That places like Botanical Gardens, they've got seats everywhere.
Yeah.
I think some ponds do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the fitness level as well, and how far people can walk.
Yeah.
And matching the pace with the person with dementia, because we got slower and slower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that some people talk about starting small and going further as people get fitter and perhaps more comfortable with the idea of being out in nature and going for a walk as well. So there's a sort of sometimes you're getting slower and not going as far, and depending on the stage of the dementia, you might be getting fitter and going further.
Yeah.
You talked about talking to Tex, and that's something that we're thinking about with connecting people to nature, that it's not just about being outdoors and having the time spent in nature, but also finding opportunities to feel a bit connected to nature, which might mean pointing things out or stopping and observing things and being a bit quieter and still.
Yeah, watching the ducks and the swans,
Mm.
counting.
Yeah, yeah, counting birds.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And finding places where there is a sort of signage, was that important at all? Or was it okay because you were always there?
it was okay for us, I guess, because we're
Mm.
most places we've been to before, so it wasn't really strange. Yeah,
Yeah, so there was familiarity from when
Yeah.
Tex was well and you'd go back to those places. Yeah, great. There's also a really lovely theory that called the dignity of risk theory that a lot of work outdoors is based on. And this means that every human being has the right to take some risks. And for everyone, that'll be a little bit different. But it's important that we find ways for people to have a bit of adventure in their life or taking a normal human risk. And that's not to mean putting people in unsafe environments or unsafe situations, but it's the opposite of wrapping people up in cotton wool and keeping them inside because there might be some particular risk outdoors. But actually, we can do a little bit more harm than good if we don't let people take those normal human risks.
I think everyone is in that same category, and if we wrap people up, then it's not really living. Then it's more existing, and I think people with dementia who live with dementia need to still live. Yeah. So I think it's important that you can look at the risk factors, and I think especially carers, you attune to the person, so you know what their abilities are. So we should still be able to do that.
Yeah, so being aware of people's abilities on that day
Yeah.
and just working with those.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Margo.
You're welcome.